Welcome. This lecture is going to be on Chapter 2, and this is Part 1. We're going to focus on rhythm, melody, and harmony. When we study music, the first thing we look at is the elements of music. And over the course of the next few slides, we're going to look at the elements of melody, rhythm, and harmony. And these three elements combined are going to make up what we call a musical language. Rhythm. So when we start looking at music, we're going to first look at rhythm. Rhythm deals with the organization of time, and it's probably the most fundamental aspect of music. All music is going to have some sort of rhythm. Whether we can feel this rhythm or not, it's there. Okay? Because all music is going to start in one period of time, and it's going to continue on, and it's eventually going to stop. And everything in between is going to have some sort of what we call a rhythmic event. One of the main important aspects of rhythm is going to be the beat or the pulse. Now, the pulse or the beat is going to be the aspect of music that we actually feel, that we may stomp our foot to, or we may clap to. The beat's also going to divide up music into equal times. Now, when we listen for a beat or pulse, we want to listen to what's called tempo. Tempo is going to be the rate of speed. Sometimes it's going to be faster, sometimes it's going to be slower. So I'm going to play for you two versions of a beat, and I want you to listen and see which one is faster. The first one's going to sound like this. Now I'm going to play the second one. So of the two versions, the second one is going to be faster than the first. Now, sometimes music's going to have a very, very strong sense of a pulse, and sometimes music may be a little bit more ambient and not have a pulse. So let's listen to these next two examples and then try and figure out which one has a very strong sense of a beat or pulse and which one doesn't. The first example is this. Now the second example is going to sound like this. So if you're listening to both of those examples, the second one has a lot stronger sense of rhythm than the first one. The rhythm is there in both examples, but the second one, the Hallelujah Chorus by Handel, is more present and has a stronger sense of rhythm or pulse. Another term that we'll talk about that's associated with rhythm is the idea of meter. Meter is basically going to be the organization of beats into groups. Okay, sometimes we organize these beats into groups of two. Sometimes we'll do in the groups of three. Sometimes we'll organize these groups into groups of four. In this example, we're organizing beats into groups of two. And so we'll have a strong beat and then a weak beat, a strong beat and then a weak beat. Let's listen. Each group of beats is called a measure, okay? And if you look here, if we were to notate it, they notate measures on a 5-line staff, and each new measure is going to be delineated by what we call a bar line. Continuing talking about meter, Some of the most common meters that we'll look at are duple, triple, and then quadruple meter. Now, duple means two, and it's going to have a two pattern. So you have a strong beat and then a weak beat. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Triple meter is going to have a three pattern. So you're going to have one strong beat and then two weak beats. This is most associated with like a waltz rhythm or dance rhythm. It would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then quadruple meter is going to have four beats in a measure, and the first and third beats are going to be stronger, where the second and fourth beats are going to be weaker. So it's going to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go listen to each musical example in each of these common meters and see if you can feel the rhythm that's associated with this meter. That was the duple meter. Next, we'll listen to triple meter. And then finally, we have quadruple meter. Continuing talking about meter, two terms that we want to be familiar with are the downbeat and then an upbeat. So the downbeat is the first beat in each measure, okay? It's the strongest beat and it has the strongest accent or stress to it. Now, another term that's associated with rhythm is an upbeat, or we might call it an anacrusis. And this is a type of musical event where it's something right before the downbeat that's going to lead into the downbeat. Maybe there's a couple notes that start before the piece actually starts. I have an example here. Let's listen to this this upbeat, or another term we call it would be an anacrusis. And as you heard, the violins kind of lead in before the rest of the ensemble starts. And it's a way of kind of smoothing everything into a nice, gentler start. When we write music, lots of times composers will add a time signature at the beginning of a piece. And this tells the musicians how the rhythm is going to operate in the piece. So if we look at a time signature, the top number is going to tell us how many beats are going to be in that measure. In this case, in 2/4, we're going to have 2 quarter notes per measure. And then the bottom note is going to tell us what note gets the beat or the pulse. So in this case, the quarter note is going to get the pulse. Tempo. Another term that we want to know is we call tempo. And tempo is the rate of speed of a piece of music, okay? Or the speed in which the beats occur in a piece of music. Now, many of these tempo markings we're going to see are in Italian. So we'll come across terms like allegro, which means fast, presto means very fast, and adagio means slow. Let's listen to a couple of these examples and then try and listen for the difference in the tempos. The first example is this. It's a very, very slow tempo and is actually marked grave. The next example sounds like this. And this tempo will be a fast tempo, or allegro. Next example sounds like this. And that's a kind of a slow tempo, or andagio. And the final example sounds like this. Again, for a very fast tempo, or you could even describe it as maybe presto. Continuing talking about notating rhythm. Rhythm can also refer to the subdivision of the beats. Sometimes if you have a pulse, you can have another subdivision of that pulse, like this. Another way to look at it would be having long and short sounds that contribute to the shape of a melody. Okay, in the following example, you're going to have a long sound and then a couple short sounds after it. So it would sound like this: long, short, 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 long, short, short, short. Let's see if we can identify that in the music example. Another thing that will help inform rhythm is the absence of rhythm, or the absence of music, called silence. And silence in musical terms is notated by rests. So in this example, we'll listen to the voice singing, and then she'll have a brief pause, or she'll be resting between each of the melodies. Let's listen. Another rhythmic term that we want to know is syncopation. And syncopation is definitely widely used in blues, jazz, rock and roll. And what syncopation is shifting the accent from the strong beats to the weaker beats of a measure. Let's listen to this example of Scott Joplin's Entertainer. And let's listen for this syncopation. As you can hear, it's that shifting from the strong beat to the weak beat, kind of bringing out this more jazzier rhythm. This concludes Chapter 2, Part 1, discussing rhythm. Stay tuned next time for Part 2, in which we'll talk about melody.